Xamarin Forms 3.4 comes with something new that I'm going to talk about in this lecture. This is simply the ability for us to now create buttons that contain images, but differently to what we were used to. We have always been able to add images to normal buttons, but again, as of Xamarin Forms 3.4, there is one new type of element called image button that is built exactly for us to add images to it. So let's take a look at how exactly we're going to be able to do that here in Xamarin Forms 3.4. Of course, the first thing that you have to do is make sure that in all of your tree projects, you have updated to Xamarin Forms 3.4, which in my case, I haven't. So in this expenses app right here that I have, I still have Xamarin Forms 3.1, which is getting a bit old. So let's go ahead and update all of these packages. I will just right click here on my new.js folder and select update packages. And you can see that I now have the 3.4 version installed. And the same thing is going to happen for all of my tree projects. So update the packages. You can see here that I see the 3.4 version available. I accept the license and it's updated. As soon as all of my projects have Xamarin 3.4 installed, Xamarin Forms 3.4, I will be able to come here and let's add it right below our button that we have here. In fact, let me just get rid of this button. I am going to comment this code. And in its place, I am going to add an image button. Notice that the image button is now available because we have Xamarin Forms 3.4 installed. And so what I'm going to do is also add a Visual State Manager. Since we already know how to use Visual State Manager, I am going to add a couple of visual states in here for the button, one that is normal and one that is pressed. Something like this real quick, really all I'm doing is changing the scale of the overall image button. So as you can see, I create the visual state groups. I create a common states visual state group in here with two visual states, one for normal that is going to set the scale to 1, so 100%, and the pressed, which is going to set the scale to 80%. So nothing new in here, just the creation of the image button. Now the interesting thing here is, of course, setting the image directly. I have over here, currently only on my iOS project, but I have in the resources a new prophets.png image, which of course is available in the resources for this lecture. But I am going to set that as the source. So contrary to what we normally do with the button, here in the image button, we can set the source of the image directly. This is going to work more like an image than like a button. So if you have used images, you know that they have the source property. So the same thing is going to happen here in the image button. So all I have to do is set this to prophets.png, which is the file that I have over here on my iOS project. Of course, I could do the same with the Android project as well, and maybe set some height to 300 and the width to 300 as well. Now, before being able to test this, let me navigate here to the categories page to at least comment out these two lines of code inside of the event handlers for when the button was pressed and released, because I no longer have that button, so these would have errors. Now, let me just go ahead and build this. And as soon as this builds, you will be able to now see the image button. Of course, just like any other element, these can be displayed inside of this preview. Now I did change this to 200 because the 300 was a little bit big for this device that is being displayed in here, but you just have the image button already. Now notice that just like the source acts as an image, we still have the clicked method, which acts as a button. You still have command parameter. Everything that we have used in buttons is still here, as well as some of the things that we have used in images, if you have used images before. So now very easily you will be able to set image buttons that, instead of containing text like normal buttons, can contain images and work with them much easier than you would with the normal buttons, or trying to make images act as buttons, which was also possible. Now let's just go ahead and take a look at how this will work. And just to prove that this is still going to work like any button, let me just go ahead and create a clicked event handler in here. Let's just go ahead and create a new one. And of course, here in the C# file, I am going to be creating the event handler. Just to test this out, I am going to set a breakpoint in here, and let's just go ahead and run this on any iOS simulator. In this case, again, this is going to work exactly the same on Android. And you can see it up and running here on my iPhone XR simulator. Now, if I click on the image, you can see that the breakpoint is hit. And also, if you click on the image, you will see that the Visual State Manager reacts. Now, it has its own thing where it changes the background or the image to be a little bit more white, a little bit faded here. But also, since we added to the Visual State Manager the changing of the scale, we can see how it looks now. Without us scaling it, it may not look very much as it's being pressed, but with that scaling in the Visual State Manager, we can see this working very well. So there you have it. Xamarin has been hard at work at creating new ways for us to implement whatever we want inside of our applications. And more often we get to see things like this, like the image button that are going to make our development process much easier. Now mixing some of the things that you could do with images and with buttons into one single element, the image button, for us to finally be able to create buttons that have images as backgrounds very easily.